a saucer skips over water. Arnold's story of flying saucers alarmed the U.S. Air Force. They believed that during World War II, the Nazis had been testing a new form of aircraft, a turbine-driven saucer device. Plans and even some photos surfaced, including one with a German tank cannon. The saucer itself was never found, and the photo was later judged to be a hoax. But the Air Force worried that if a Nazi saucer did exist, it might have fallen into Russian hands. To investigate the rash of strange sightings, they hired Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a professor of astronomy at Northwestern University in Illinois. At first a skeptic, Hynek discovered that nearly 20% of UFOs could not be explained. Hynek labeled these sightings close encounters and classified them into 3 types. In the first, a UFO is spotted. In the second, evidence like landing marks is left behind. In a close encounter of the third kind, alien creatures are actually seen. For 20 years, Hynek tracked UFOs. The scientific community saw him as an obsessed eccentric. He kept up the search in retirement until his death in 1986, yet found no evidence of alien visitors. But some ufologists believe the Air Force withheld the proof.
When you least expect it, someone may be watching out for you.
I thought the universe was just a big, cold, random machine.
Is there really life after life?
You'll heard of the UFO on October 1st, 1948. Flying over North Dakota, Second Lieutenant George Gorman spotted a lighted object.
It was about 6 to 8 inches in diameter and round, without fuzz at the edges. It was blinking on and off. As I approached, the light became steady and pulled into a sharp left bank. I dived after it, but I couldn't catch up with the thing.
The shaken pilot told investigators that the object moved as if guided by reason. Air traffic controllers in Fargo confirmed the object's high rate of speed. In the early 60s, official reports of flying saucers plummeted. UFOs would have vanished off our collective radar were it not for pop culture, which picked up the flag and ran. Amusement parks featured space themes, and B-movies kept UFOs flying high. Then, in the middle of a decade of protest, a small band of Americans began to speak out about an incident they claimed was covered up 20 years before.
In 1947 alone, every state of the Union except one reported flying disc-shaped objects in the sky that were performing at unbelievable rates. If you look at Roswell as an isolated incident, you have to ask yourself, what is this spaceship doing in New Mexico? On the face of it as one fact, it makes no sense whatsoever. But you put it in context of the summer of 1947 and you say, oh, I understand, they were all over the place. And they found themselves focusing on New Mexico. And yes, one came down.
In 1947, newspapers had astounded readers with reports of a flying saucer that crashed on a farm near the town of Roswell, New Mexico. But the Air Force quickly refuted the story, stating that the flying saucer was merely a weather balloon.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States.
In the 1960s, a number of people who were first-hand witnesses to not the crash, but to the subsequent follow-up of the military's involvement and their attempt to stop any information coming out of that area started coming forward. Credible witnesses who actually handled material, saw material, or were part of the actual examination and subsequent, perhaps, disposal of the bodies that were recovered.
The legend of the Roswell saucer and the alien bodies has grown over the years, until now it has become an icon for the supposed government cover-up of the existence of UFOs. Russ Estes is a documentary producer who has studied the Roswell crash.
The incident at Roswell, New Mexico is probably our best possible scenario for alien contact because of the number of witnesses involved, the reports of debris, the type of debris, the amount of cover-up that has most obviously taken place over the years. It keeps drawing us back to Roswell 50 years later, saying, you know, this is the one that requires the hardest look.
A native of Roswell, Frankie Rowe remembers her father's account of the crash.
He was so excited he couldn't hardly talk. He told us that they had gotten a call that morning. They thought they were going to go out to a plane crash. And when they got out there, what it actually was the crash of a flying saucer. And he said that when they arrived, there was one little person that was still walking around outside of the craft, and two that they knew were dead because they had already been covered over and wrapped up in what he called body bags. They all knew the sadness. They could feel the sadness that this little person had over losing the companions. And the person told them that they couldn't help in any way. So they had only been there just a few minutes when the military arrived. And after the military got there, they chased them away.
The problem now is that it's half a century old. And we're left with this question as well, how good the memory is, how much is being distorted, how much are we leading the memory, and there's no way to really tell at this point what's totally objective, what's subjective, except the few people who were directly threatened by the military and told that if they divulged what they had heard or what they had seen, their bodies would be found, or their bleached bones would be found decades later under the sands in New Mexico.
Something happened at Roswell.